And as a little disclaimer at the beginning, this talk won't be too technical. I didn't place any code there. And I still will be talking about a lot of coding stuff behind the scenes. And this is how I feel and think about Azure and all the cloud services. So be with me and enjoy. And if you will have any questions, feedback, or anything else, try to reach me on my socials here. 258. Is it a high number for you? It was for me when I started my personal blog in Polish, writing about Umbraco and programming stuff at all. It was during the day when I released an article about programming and teaching programming for young kids. I sat in front of my computer with popcorn, literally, and watching real users on my Google Analytics, and I felt, man, this is huge. 258 people are watching my site right now. They're reading my article. And no, it didn't. It wasn't. 1.4 billion. I needed to Google to be sure that I'm using the correct amount of zeros here. 1.4 billion. Do you know from where this number comes from? This is a number of daily active users on Facebook. From December 2017, it decreased lately, right, after the whole crazy stuff around it. But 1.4 billion. It's hard to imagine how many sessions or how many requests they are handling. But this is a high number compared with 258, which is still high, right? I'm trying to think that I'm popular. No, I don't. So when we are talking about high traffic websites, and when I ask my friends, my colleagues about high traffic, it always comes with high availability. It's a hard word to pronounce in English, and I'm not a native English speaker. But it comes in pairs, so it's really hard to tell and talk about high traffic websites. So I tried to ask Google, but not as Google literally searching in the Google search bar, but to reach them when they think that the site is really high traffic website, and they are starting talking with other subjects, other companies, in terms of, I don't know, for example, better contracts on advertisements, lower pricing for advertisements, etc., and they are starting talking with websites which are reaching 1 million unique users per day. This is their measure. They treat those websites as a high-traffic websites. Then I checked Alexa's rank, which is a ranking for the websites where they are bragging, comparing between each other in terms of who is more popular and who's not. And Alexa is measuring it like that. So small websites, for example, are those who reached under 300 unique users per day. Medium sites are between 300, let's say, to this 1,000 unique users per day. And the really high traffic websites are those who are reaching more than 10,000 unique users per day. So all those measures are around unique users. They are not thinking about traffic in one spike or one moment or one single piece of time. So as it's all in our IT industry, it depends. So it depends from point of view, it depends from the situation, or even tools or situations where we are landing. And I've mentioned high availability. So it comes in pair because if we want to deliver or create or handle high traffic, our site needs to be available for the people who want to see it. And it's a really often problem because developers and companies are usually not thinking about it ahead. Because when Rune and Matt started their own band, they didn't think that they will become so popular, right? They didn't know that they will have millions of visitors on their website. And it's hard to predict all those situations like that, and we are not thinking about it ahead. So if we want to have high traffic websites and to be prepared for the high traffic, we need to confirm and be sure that our site will be running almost all the time. And it drives us to the word which I'm passionate about lately, and it's performance. And speaking about performance, we also can think about it differently from different perspectives, and as always in IT industry, it depends. But I don't know if you're familiar with this one. I tried to separate this slide and screen in two fields, the black one and the white one, simple. It's a standard Pareto rule related with the web performance. It's a rule 20-80, and the 20 stands for the backend performance, and 80 is about the front-end performance. And it's all about a fill time of a user who is visiting our site compared with the server-side processing, which is done usually on the server. And when it comes to optimizations, I am personally a .NET developer, so I'm focusing on that. And we are putting all the resources, many resources, on optimization this part. And we're forgetting about this part. And users don't. Users see the website, users visiting the website, so their expectations are mostly focused here. And this rule was confirmed. There are many wise guys sharing a lot of information about it and about anything behind it. And I found really useful charts displaying a really value of this rule compared into metrics. First of them is a user load, and it's about concurrent users on the website, and measured in the response time in milliseconds. And this looks pretty stable to the specific piece of moment of time. But when it comes to really high traffic, really high number of concurrent users, this backend part of it becomes really important, the most important one, because frontend isn't there probably at that moment. Backend server is taking care of the processing stuff and delivers content which will be displayed for the end user. And there are many ways of fixing that. And it's not only about the speed, and I want to mention it because it's not only about delivering quicker, but delivering at all. And speed, of course, is money. And I tried to find a really reasonable situations in our industry which will prove this thesis. And one of them was delivered by Strangeloop. And they've measured that 1 second delay in page load time caused them decreases of page views and customer satisfaction, and also loss in conversion, which cost them a lot of money. So time is money at the end. So big companies, big corporations are throwing in front of us something called SLA. And when we hear about SLAs, we heard about those 9s, more 9s is better, and it draws us to the presentation topic for the Code Garden, which we named 99 problems, but the glitch is 1. And more 9s is always better in terms of SLA. So no one will say that, yeah, we're 100% sure that it will work all the time. It's not possible. Everyone has bad days, even Azure and even all the other cloud providers. But yeah, what we need to care is to provide those high number of 9s. But how developers behave then if they are confronted with SLAs, all the paperwork and information about being responsible for what they will create? They're hiding. It's not their fault. Sometimes, of course, there are different types of developers, but usually, and I know those types of guys, who they will hide and they say that it's not their fault. It just don't work. Come back later. And in terms of come back later, if you want to learn more about .NET performance optimizations in this minor part of the chart and Pareto rule, visit our talk on Code Garden on Thursday at 11:15. I don't want to focus about the .NET performance today. So I want to introduce you to a short story. And this short story is about 3 people. First of them is Jeff, second one is Mike, and third of them is Sam. Those are 3 developers. You probably may notice that Mike looks cooler than other ones. This one is probably a hacker and anonymous group member. They are different. And as solutions for different problems are usually different. In Jeff's world, and Jeff is really common guy in our branch, he thinks that cache is the king, and we need to cache everything. And in our projects, I saw that people are even caching what already has been cached. Yeah, people are doing it. So there are a lot of Jeffs in this world. Jeff is also from this group of people who are looking for plugins for everything. So if it doesn't work or I don't know how to do it, let's find a plugin for it. Does it sound familiar with the most popular CMS in the world? And I'm not talking about Umbraco right now. And if it fails, usually they think that the server is bad or not enough. So yeah, we need to have a better server. or we need to finally switch from sharing hosting to the dedicated one. If not one dedicated, let's buy 2 dedicated servers, and then think about performance, maybe. Everything is new for Jeff. So Jeff doesn't think about performance at all, doesn't think about performance ahead. He allocates a ton of the objects. Speaking in the C# nomenclature, he allocates a lot of members, a lot of objects, and don't care about end user or performance of the application at all. And if we are speaking about cloud and Azure, and you will speak with Jeff, Jeff will say cloud. Cloud is a bunch of someone else's servers. It's nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. It drives us to the inherited project horrors. We as a Cogworks, we are inheriting a lot of projects, and my colleague Callum, who is running our show right now on YouTube, was presenting a lot about inheriting projects failures, and not failures only. And this is usually caused by Jeffs. Let's move on. We have Mike. Mike looks cool. He's another developer. He thinks before execution. He knows who will visit his site, what the purpose of the visitors is, and what he, as a developer, needs to provide for them. In his work, or his company, maybe, he has time to think about it. He has time to work on performance. And I don't want to ask you public questions, but observing a lot of other companies, there is no rule of having time for performance optimization or even refactoring at all. Right now, we're trying to keep a rule to have at least 1 week in a 4-week cycle, to have 1 week for refactorings and performance optimizations. It's not enough yet, but it's something. And I really encourage you and your companies to have something like that in your routines. It drives Mike and Mike's company to find weaknesses and bottlenecks of his or their software. And those weaknesses are constantly discovered and fixed during those cycles. And performance, to have something fixed or have something discovered, needs to be measured. So we need to know that, no, this doesn't work well, or maybe there is a room for improvements, so it's measured. And application, not only the code, is tested in Mike's company or in Mike's routine. And also from the high traffic perspective. So tests, measures, and time for fixing. And he uses tools. Of course he uses tools. He uses plugins because they are made to be used, but use it wisely and on purpose. And I want to encourage all of you. I feel right now as a developer that I want to be like Mike. I want to be like Mike. I really want to have time to do those stuff. But not always, it's not always perfect, and it's not always this way. We all know that. But let's try to keep and try to be like Mike. So let's assume right now that Mike wants to use Umbraco and wants to run it on Azure. And I will skip the step where we are teaching Mike how to install Umbraco on Azure, because it's easy, and our children in our programming school in Poland are doing it really well. It's a click of the button, we can install Umbraco, run it on Azure Web App without any issues. So we are assuming that Mike knows that. Having his mindset, we will start with profiling. And let's start with profiling front-end users. So we will know that at some point, our website might be popular. So let's start analyzing who are visiting this website. We can start from simple Google Analytics or Google Search Webmaster Tools to discover first weaknesses of our sites. There are some talks on the even Umbraco ecosystem saying how to improve it, how to become better in those areas. We are not all front-end developers, and to be honest, I don't do front-end at all right now. But we can learn about those visitors to understand where we can help front-end developers or where we can help in our code base to make it more efficient for the end users. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Hotjar, but we can record sessions. We can see how users literally behave on our website. So we can grab a popcorn, grab our team, sit in front of the computer or a projector and watch how users behave on our website, where they have problems, where they are running away, or where they are waiting for something which can be improved in the future. And of course, we should learn from our or maybe someone else's mistakes. So we should read errors. If we are using LMIO or any other software as a service solution, the errors are there. If not, let's just grab the files from server or access them differently and read them. And if we'll skip this step, we can move on. We can move to the further pieces of code, and we can profile our backend code using tools listed here, such as Mini Profiler, which is built in Umbraco, or used third-party tools like Redgate Ants, JetBrains.trace, or even Azure Service Profiler, which is a brand new child on the block. And start small, because it's not the point of wasting too much time on fixing something which doesn't exist. I'm not a fan of creating problems where they are not there yet, maybe. So let's start small. Let's start from opening Mini Profiler and learning how our site behaves. If it's Umbraco website, we can learn what we did wrong or which package or maybe piece of code is causing the issue. To open the Mini Profiler, if you are not familiar with it, we just need to change the property in compilation object in web config to say debug true, and append the UMB debug query string with value true in the URL, and we'll see the Mini Profiler opened on our website. It's such simple like that, because it's built in. And there are new kits on the block, and Azure released the preview of Service Profiler lately, and from the insiders, we can see that it really does its job. And this is made to make our lives easier, and this makes our life complete, maybe. The architecture looks like that. They created something called data cubes, and they're gathering performance data from our applications by some agents, which are strongly connected with our applications. So they're running in our Azure VM or any other piece of service which we are hosting somewhere, and collecting data on the fly when our applications runs. And it's collected by a service profiler and analysis service, and it creates the data queries which are outputted to the browser and our dashboard in Service Profiler. It looks like that. We have a queue, we have specific actions or services requesting some specific bytes of data, and then some measures, and grouped by percentiles of users in each groups. It really helps because we can go deeper. And even I can tell you that if you will integrate the Service Profiler with your GitHub repository or even host it anywhere else, it can even analyze your code and point you to the exact method or exact line of code where the error is or where the situation is caused because of that. So we can learn, we can just discover what the issues are and where the problems are inside of our application. In terms of measures, we had an inherited project, which was a charting company, which was releasing and still releasing the charts, music charts. Rune, Mats, I hope that you will beat Ed Sheeran in this set, but it comes that Ed Sheeran was just ruling it. He was on the first place a couple weeks in a row. The releases of the charts were done on Fridays on 5:45, ideal hour for that developer team to be ready for any problems. And we called it Ed Sheeran hour because a client was pretty sure that it will fail. It always fails because all the third-party companies were trying to access those data, fetch them, and present them on their website. So they asked us, let's fix this Ed Sheeran hour. And we've used all those steps, which I will be talking about today, to help them. And it works right now. Those companies are accessing this data, and the millions of users are exploring if Ed Sheeran won this week or not. Maybe Rune or Mats will replace him. So heavy traffic spikes. How we can even imitate that? Because we don't want to ask a million people on Twitter to just jump on our URL to check if it works. Especially if it didn't. So we can use tools like load impact, for example, to imitate the load, to prepare specific testing scenario, and to push this load on our website, on our testing environment, to have some measures, have some reports, have some valuable feedback from the tool which is created to deliver it for us. And once again, Azure can help us. Visual Studio Team Services which I personally disliked a couple years back, right now are doing amazing things around it. And I really like them right now. And you can read more in some insiders' feedbacks, or you can test it by yourself, because not everyone knows, but Visual Studio Team Services in small teams up to 5 people are free to use. So you can use it. You can get those measures. You can profile your applications and do many more interesting stuff with your applications. How to do this? We can do this from app services in an Azure portal. We can go to development tools of our application service, hit performance test, configure it, and have data of our performance test. It's such easy. If you want to go a step ahead, and we have Visual Studio Team Services account, we can configure all those tests there. We can also create, once again, groups, environments, some specific scenarios, and place those data there, and test, and have reports, maybe then analyze them. But what brought my attention lately is a new feature from Azure Service Profiler, which enables us to store those load test profiles in the solutions. So we can create a file or a couple files. It's a load test file and web test environment setup, and keep them under our source control in our solutions file. So we can version control them. We can have different sets of tests, load tests, and include them in our source control and share them across the teams. And I don't know, even encourage people to start them in their solutions after they will develop some interesting features or changes in the code base without having continuous integration and continuous deployment setup set yet. It looks really amazing in Visual Studio, straight in our IDE, our tool, which most of us are familiar with. So yeah, that's damn good. I'm really surprised and I'm really amazed how and where it's going. So at this moment, when we profile the front-end users, we profile the front-end behavior of our application and the back-end code, we can judge, is it really bad? Just bad? Or maybe not bad at all? Maybe not bad, maybe it requires just small improvements. So from here now, we can talk about Azure. Because Azure, it's not just a hosting provider. It's more than that. And I felt in the past that I'm missing most of it. I was focusing on some small bits here, maybe there, and maybe there. But there is more of that. And I couldn't find the latest version of this chart. It's so hard to keep it up to date. There is a link which I can share with you, which will drive you to the exact list of services available for us on Azure. So it's not only hosting. We've been, of course, in terms of Umbraco development, we can focus on some parts of it, but we can definitely learn more, and we should learn more about other options there. And Umbraco loves Azure. I don't know if you've seen the analogy in this slide, but Umbraco really loves Azure. If you have been on the previous talk and heard about Umbraco Cloud or Umbraco Headless, it's all running on top of the Azure. It's all hosted in Azure, and it's all using magic services or less magic services from Azure infrastructure. And to go a step beyond, you can even use Umbraco Cloud APIs to create your own environments, which will be hosted on Azure and will be cheaper than you serving the same exact behavior from Azure directly. Just a pro tip from Polish guy. And because Umbraco runs on Azure right now, Umbraco also knows those bottlenecks and issues which were caused by Azure, or maybe wrong setup, or wrong properties, or maybe bottlenecks in Umbraco at all, and adapts and learns from the mistakes. So we should definitely learn from other people's mistakes too, Umbraco included. So just update. If Umbraco says that, yeah, the latest version is optimized because we fixed some performance issues with Azure, and not only Azure, just update. Smallly, step by step, but update. This is probably the biggest advice which you can take off from this talk. But when we are talking about Umbraco Cloud and all the products behind it, usually we heard about scaling. It's not scales. One does not simply scale. It isn't yet. We cannot have an auto-scaling features on Umbraco Cloud. All the fancy developers who are building high-traffic websites ahead are requesting for it. Of course, it's needed at some point. It can be done on Azure. You can still use Umbraco for it, but maybe not through the Umbraco Cloud. Umbraco Cloud is not for every project, and it was said from the very beginning. And in terms of scaling, to understand it better, we can think about two types of scaling. A vertical scaling, which is usually called also to scale up application, and horizontal scaling, which in other words says that we are scaling out our application. And I used the SQL database servers as an examples because they had the best picture which I found. So if we want to scale up, we can increase our addition of a SQL server, or we can, I don't know, increase number of cores on our server, or RAM, or anything else like that. But when we are scaling out, we are just, I don't know, literally copying this machine, this setup, and putting this in a row and using it simultaneously. So this is really important to understand it. And in ideal world delivered by Microsoft and Azure, this is the perfect scaling web app. And you can see we have an internet access, our client who is accessing web app, which is hosted somewhere, maybe in an app service or not, accessing some data from Azure SQL. Meantime, we can grab something from Redis cache. Oh, maybe we can use Azure Search. There is a lot of things, there is a lot of services here. We can definitely simplify it, and it's not required to have a perfect scalable app running Umbraco, for example. But this is just their perfect scenario example. In Umbraco world, and I'm calling all the documentation workers, we definitely need to improve those charts and those diagrams. It can look like this. This is only. This is a master server, which should be accessed by editors and all people who are dealing with the back office access, which is connected directly to Umbraco database, and bunch of front-end servers. It can be one server, it can be multiple servers, it can be automatically scaled out. And load balancer or any other mechanism which is driving our front-end user to the correct server or correct location of an application. It's really simple when you will try to understand. It's all documented. And if you want to play with this setup, someone in 2016 created a template for Azure application called Scalable Umbraco CMS Web App. And if you will click this button, and if you have logged into your Azure portal, it will create all the resources, all the setups, all the environments, web apps, and relate them one to another. The problem here is that it costs, and it's not a big cost for someone who is expecting a traffic spikes and huge load on the website usually. But if it's blocking someone from using it or playing with it, it's not an issue anymore. Azure created a free account. I don't know when, to be honest. I missed that totally. But right now, you can create a free Azure account, which is backed by 200 euros, if I'm correct, of credits. It's free for 12 months, so 1 year of free services, all app services there. And the 25 services are free forever after opening the account from free account. And from here, now on, I want to move to some tips Umbraco related, from my perspective, which can help you and help us all deliver better, scalable Umbraco web applications running on Azure. So first one, and the biggest one, read the docs. It's been said, we are all developers. I know how it is, especially when someone asks me to write the docs. Right now, I'm working on an application which will automate it, by the way. It's hard to write really meaningful and interesting documentation covering all the scenarios, but usually something is already there. And if it's not there, just ask for it. There are people who are knowing more than other people, and they are willing to share this knowledge, but maybe sometimes they don't know how or via which channel. There is a lot of information about setup of Azure in a web app, Azure in load balance environments. There is a lot of information there, so start from here. If you want to do anything, start from reading the docs. And I have one favor, ask and question for you. Just don't expect things. If you can improve something or you know more, if you are coming from .NET world, didn't play with Umbraco in the past, and you are doing something differently, just say that. Just point us to the right direction and help us to make it even better. Yeah, and this is what I've mentioned. So sections about Azure web apps and flexible load balancing. I don't want to bring all those setups and informations to you today. If you will be looking for something, it's there. It's for you. It's for our purposes. We can all use it when it comes to the point where we will be in need of it. Then update, and update often, ideally. Update as often as you can. our rule right now in our teams is that if we're starting our internal release for the client, we're starting from upgrading all the Umbraco sources. We try to automate that. We will probably automate it somehow. But right now, whoever is taking care of the new release for the client, the first commits, the first task is to update Umbraco and Umbraco core projects. That's the rule of thumb. And if you are updating, also read the docs. There are issues, there are problems between the specific versions because Umbraco is evolving. And read the docs to discover them earlier than it will be too late. Then you can analyze. You can use all those fancy tools and software pieces which I've mentioned earlier to analyze your applications, to analyze your audience, to analyze your behaviors, and to make them better. And then you can jump to the step of optimization. Then you can start optimize. And start with small things, such as bundling and minification. We are all forgetting about it. And it's really important. There are some packages like Optimus for Umbraco, particularly. Client dependency is one of the Umbraco dependencies. We can use it also for our front-end solutions. And then we can also fire up the web optimization tools to help us discover those issues and to help us deliver bundled and minified scripts or assets for our websites using ASP.NET MVC engines, for example. Then we can think about some tweaks or hacks or better solutions for the simplicity of those solutions, like Cloudflare, for example. I was playing with Cloudflare a lot in the past. It's a static cached version of your websites running across the content delivery networks. And it can be fetched from different areas really fast because it keeps the version of your site there. You can purge this cache, you can work with that. And if you have really interesting solution or you are expecting high traffic and don't want to play more with optimization, you can start from here. Setup takes 5 minutes maybe and you can use it. But it's not too efficient for a more complex solution without any efforts. Then you can move to optimizations in Umbraco areas. You can use amazing packages created by Javan for dealing with media because Azure has its own weaknesses. Input and outputs takes time, and we need to definitely decrease this time. And we can use Azure Blob Storage, Umbraco file system providers in Azure, and put some config to image processor to keep even cached versions of images there on Azure Blobs and spread them across the various number of front-end servers or even various number of developers. We are using blob caches, for example, right now to deal with the same sets of images across the development team, for example. It's really efficient, really nice, and we really enjoy that. And the setup is pretty simple, and it's all well documented. So once again, I don't want to bring you all set up here. Just if you will be looking for the solution in terms of hosting medias in Azure Blobs, just go, grab it, play with it, install it via NuGet, and read the docs. Then you can think about some other tools, maybe content delivery network. If you know that, for example, your visitors are from different parts of the world, maybe it's important to have a resource group set up there and set resource group setups there and maybe load balance them or deliver them content from different parts of the world. And still, you can use another amazing tools, once again from Javan, for dealing with content delivery networks and have a really handy toolkit to serve those files from different networks. Then yet another package from Javan. At some point, I thought that only Javan uses Azure in our community. But yeah, this is well done with those packages. If we want to have logs, and usually we want to have those logs, but we are disabling them because Azure is a pain in something when it comes to reading and writing. So if we will install this Azure logger package, it will add an appender to log4.net and stores the logs on the Azure table storage, which is definitely more efficient than keeping them in the static files across the various applications. And then we can think about improving it even further. Think about Redis. If we have an application which is requiring a sessions data, we can put the sessions onto Redis, which is ideal for it, and it's easy to set up, and we can think about making it even more efficient from here. Redis is an open source in-memory data structure store. I needed to write it because I couldn't remember the whole definition of it. And it's used not only to store sessions data. People are using it really for different purposes, even for those for which it wasn't made for. And it's great for it, because it does its job. and it used efficiently move us to the point where maybe it's enough. It might be enough at this point. We might not need load balancers, traffic managers, and all the stuff related with handling those problems. It might be enough. And this is where, for example, Umbraco Cloud's solutions ends. It works very well. Umbraco works amazingly on Azure. It's more than enough for, I don't want to shout out percentages, but for more than 80% of solutions, I think, simple solutions. But if not, we can move on and think about load balancing the stuff, or maybe delivering our applications faster or more stable for different parts of the globe. And then Traffic Manager comes in. Traffic Manager is handy tool, handy service on Azure, which can detect from where the specific request comes from and separate those requests in different areas or different resource plans on our application setup. It reduces latency. It's based on the round-robin algorithm to deliver it, and it really helps if for example, one resource group is failed. Azure made mistakes too. It can serve the content from other resource group, and the site is still available. And availability is something really important when it comes to this solution. And basic topology of using Traffic Manager with some more complex stuff on Azure. And to be honest, it doesn't require too much coding, too much changes. It's just a couple clicks in Azure portal. You can set up Traffic Manager, point it to the different resource groups in different areas, for example, set up an Azure load balancer in front of it, and make it all done on the cloud. So it's not only hosting, what I like to say, it's more than that, and you can control it from dashboard for what it was made for. And at the end, you can think about tweaking it, because this is the part where when you are in the real need of tweaking it. You've done your job. You've prepared your site to work in high traffic, load balanced solutions, and you are ready for this high traffic. So bring it first, then tweak it. I haven't seen any application done. It wasn't never done. So it's always room for tweaks and improvements, so do it. And what we are doing right now in our teams, for example, we are using Azure Functions a lot. We are moving long-lasting jobs to the Azure Functions, and some pieces of code which maybe are stateless or doesn't require any states, and tries to manipulate our data by the events. Just say to the whole system, we need something, give it back to us. And Azure Functions are cheap, are way cheaper than a lot of hosting prices which we need to take to deliver other parts of our applications. So explore more about Azure Functions, explore more about decoupling monoliths into some other pieces of software. And I will tell you more about it in a later part of this talk, but just finish this part. I haven't been talking about continuous integration and deployment because it's definitely a topic for a bigger and separated talk. But yeah, Visual Studio Team Services are helpful a lot in this area too. And we can also use the third-party tools. We can use web app slots to perform zero downtime deployments. And we should do this if we are dealing with Azure services. And we can also tweak it by creating our custom warm-up code, which will prepare a warm-up for us before the real users will hit our site. It's all possible, it's all easy to set up, and it's all well documented. But you might think, where I missed some. Do I miss some? Some thinks 100 steps ahead. Probably all of you knows someone who is in this profile. He abstracts everything. He tries to not think about Umbraco as a CMS at all. He tries to not think Umbraco as an ASP.NET MVC application. He tries to abstract everything. Then creates 100, at least, projects or microprojects, microservices in the solutions. Email service, email sending service, email receiving service, receiver, etc., etc. 100 projects inside of one solution. This is Sam's. And he already set up a continuous integration template for V9 because he's looking for independent code base which can be run on top of the Kubernetes or other orchestration to run containers on Azure or other cloud service providers. And of course, it's all possible Oh, and I almost forgot that Service Fabric is the simplest orchestration in his mind. I don't know if you have played with Service Fabric. It's also possible for Umbraco. You can create a Docker container for your ASP.NET application. You can have an Azure SQL database. You can have media blobs for files. You can write a custom examine provider and host it somewhere outside of the web application and treat Umbraco as a puzzle and deploy it to the Service Fabric. But is it needed? Why it's better than app services if it's a website at the end? It might be better for someone who treats Umbraco as a puzzle. It's only CMS. We all seen that it's possible to use CMS in different areas and different scenarios. And if we are going to treat Umbraco as a CMS, we definitely need to look more about it and look forward to new releases and new improvements in Umbraco itself. So what we can, or even should, learn from Sam, that we are not alone in the game. I visited some conferences, some .NET conferences lately, and I felt like this. They are playing with Kubernetes, Service Fabric, some weird orchestrations, .NET Core, Linux. Oh, I installed Linux on my studies way back in the past. I can do this. I work with Umbraco. No, I can. And I can learn. I can do other things, and I can do it with Umbraco right now, and I'm pretty sure that using headless, it will be even more easier and more convenient to work with it. So no one wants to be this lonely girl here. So as a summary and the takeaways, based on the Sam's advices and some other people's minds, what we can do, high traffic is something on our website for what we can be prepared for. Maybe not, we are not always expecting millions of users, but we can think that it might become popular, and we can talk with our clients that, yeah, if you are doing using website, maybe it's for someone more than you only, not only you are clicking here and refreshing it. We can be ready for it. And Azure is just one of the options. There are multiple cloud providers. There is an AWS, Google Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, and more. I can even list all of them because I can't find information about all of them. And Umbraco is a single puzzle. If we will treat Umbraco as a puzzle, and we want to build a whole orchestration of services or .NET, not only .NET, applications which are connected and working with each other, we can think about Umbraco as a puzzle and deploy it even as a container for Docker container for Azure Service Fabric. It's possible. And we need to always think before execution to save money, time, and stress for all of us. And we should definitely learn from other people's mistakes, and including Umbraco HQ's mistakes, because mistakes are for it. We should learn, we should save our times and stress as well. And we can't miss the .NET train. We need to know what's going on, what the fancy kids on the block are doing, where are the possibilities for us as the Umbraco developers. But having in mind that it's not the idea of over-engineering stuff. Simple is still perfect. And done even is better than perfect. So we can take it from here and just explore more. And don't be scared of changes and updates. They are made for it, to be changed and to be updated. And of course, we should read and improve the docs. Having a thought about this .NET train, we can go and step beyond Umbraco at all. We can abstract all the things. We can replace Examine right now with some Elasticsearch providers or Azure Search or even more. We can really treat Umbraco as a puzzle in the game, and we should definitely do that and improve and write about it and say more about it, how it was done, to save some time for other people who will be maybe in need to discover it for us. So my name is Marcin Zajkowski. I work for the Cogworks group. You might know some of those familiar faces from the community. We are trying to be active. I'm trying to be active as a developer, but also as a teacher. I'm running a programming school for children. As you can see, I'm not wasting any time with my daughter as well. I'm running Umbraco-Festival, which is a weekly YouTube streaming show, probably, about Umbraco news and community stuff around Umbraco. You can find us on YouTube, and I'm a blogger on UDFND, which is a hard domain to share. Unfortunately, it's only in Polish right now, but I try to be active and different. And special for you here today, I've prepared a 50% discount for Umbraco Polish Festival, which we are organizing as the Cogworks in Poland, in Krakow, beautiful city, close to here. relatively. Come to Krakow in September. We will be more than happy to have you there. And if you want to share your feedback, ask me any question, I'm here until the end of the after party, so probably Monday. And you can reach me on socials, on Zajkowski Marcin on Twitter, GitHub, and other. Thank you very much.